So, I wanted to address an article or really a video that went viral a couple of weeks ago, actually around Father's Day. I'm just now having a time to get to it, but nevertheless, I think it's pretty relevant. And it was actually a 23-year-old mother who went viral for her routine that she has for the 34 kids that she takes care of. So, before I get into it, I'm just going to bring up the article so you guys can kind of get a sense of what's going on, and then I'll give my perspective on it. Here it reads Mama Mia, I'm a mom of 34 kids at 23. We all go to sleep at 7 p.m., but I'm up all night whenever they wake. Y'all, 34 kids. That's literally a classroom. Okay, so I'm going to read it. It says, Think your life is busy. A woman has revealed how she is a mom to 34 kids at the age of 23. How is that possible? Here it says TikTok user. I have no idea what her name is, so I'm just going to use TM because I don't want to butcher her name. TikTok user TM uploaded a video showing her morning routine in the home she runs, a Malawi for orphans, street kids, and teen mothers. Here it says 4 a.m. for a mom of 34 children. So it looks like she actually runs an orphanage out of Malawi. Here's a picture, another picture of her with a baby. They blur out his face. 10 p.m. There she is. So 4 a.m., 10 p.m. She's pretty much on the clock nonstop. It says the kids go to bed at 7 p.m., but her night shift really starts then as lots of the babies will wake up to feed. So again, she's up pretty much around the clock. You have to be if you're taking care of 44 kids. I wonder if there's other mothers or other people who are helping her. I hope so, because that's unsustainable long term. But I continue. Says T found herself as a homeless single mom at the age of 18, but opened her organization You Are Not Alone, Yana, shortly after. The kids in her shelter range from 5 months, to up to the age of 16, and she has a very grueling routine when it comes to taking care of them. On her account, she said all the kids are not abandoned. Some are orphans, some have only one parent, some have both parents, but they have been abandoned by those parents. I provide education, empowerment, and skills. Her day begins at 4 a.m., and she showed how she prepares all the food for the kids, including sandwiches, hot dinners, and juice boxes. She added, I am the only one who cooks for the under 5 children, and every child has her own morning chores. The kids go to bed at 7 p.m., but her night shift really starts then as lots of the babies will wake up to feed. She said, I have to feed him and also change the diapers as I also have to prepare for work in the next day. Many people praised her efforts, with one saying, You are doing an amazing thing for all of them. Keep it up. Another added, May God reward you abundantly. Here she is, this young 23-year-old, all of those meals, preparing all of that food for all of those kids. T found herself as a homeless single mom at the age of 18, but opened her organization You Are Not Alone. Yana, shortly after, that was the caption. And that's pretty much it. So, first off, I want to say, what an amazing thing for her to do. Incredibly sacrificial. Seriously, hats off to her for taking on all of that responsibility. I wouldn't wish that upon everybody. I pray the grace of God and her literally. But something I wanted to highlight in this whole conversation, specifically that article, was that I think very often single parenthood, especially single motherhood, is valorized to a fault. So take, for example, the situation. She said she found herself at a single mother at the age of 18. We don't really know the story behind it. We don't know what was going on, whether she was married and widowed or whether she just kind of had a fling, whether there was some form of abuse. But we don't know the scenario. All we know was that 18, she was homeless and a single mother. Fast forward a couple of years, now 23, she's taken on the responsibility of all these kids. I'm assuming she's having some form of funding. I'm assuming she's having some form of help. We don't know. All we can do is fill in the blanks. Now, of course, what we saw is all kind of people praising her and giving her, the accolades, because it's like, yeah, you purposefully taking on the responsibility of 34 kids, you know, hand clap, hands up. Even in there, she said, these kids are not abandoned. Her organization is called You Are Not Alone. She talked about being able to provide education and food and essentially all the necessities that these kids need. And like I said, no have, no, like all respect to her. She's literally doing the best that she can to try to fulfill a need. But the issue that I have is that while it's great that she's been able to try to step up and fulfill a need, at the end of the day, far too often, single motherhood, single parenthood, whatever, is almost promoted as the best option. And to me, it's one thing to kind of find yourself in a situation, find yourself in a scenario and try to make the best of it. And then it's another thing to paint it as like, hey, this is just as sufficient. This is just as well. This is just as good as being raised in a two-parent household. And it just really isn't. It really is not. I mean, there's enough data to show that, kids growing up in single parent households, especially kids growing up with single mothers, do not generally do as well. Now, of course, we can also speak to anomalies. Of course, there are cases where people grew up with single moms, single dads, and still were able to do well, still were able to succeed. But I'm saying that's not the ideal scenario. That's not the scenario that we should hope for or wish for or even plan for. And unfortunately, we live in a culture, baby mama culture, where we go to more baby showers than weddings. We see more baby announcements, more baby, parties, whatever, than we do engagements and weddings and wedding anniversaries. And my personal opinion is that that's not something positive. Being in a single parent household, to me, that should not be positioned as just as effective or just as healthy as being in a two parent household. Because think about it, like if it takes two people to create a baby, I think there's a reason for that. Nature is probably telling us something. And so even if I think of that young woman who, has obviously a big heart and obviously cares about all these kids, or well, she would not have put herself in a situation to try to care for them. God bless her. And also, that is not a burden that any one person should have to manage by themselves. She, as a woman, as a young woman, should not be trying to manage 34 kids. And this is where you sometimes you have Black women complaining about muling, or even the scenario of Black women having to be the superwoman, where it's they find themselves in situations that are impossible and they try to make the name of it. This would be a prime scenario. Here's a woman who's in an impossible scenario, and she essentially puts on her superwoman cape and makes it work. But I'm like, that is not an ideal scenario. How did she get to that place? How do those kids get to that place? And I wish, we started to have these kinds of conversations and even ask these kinds of questions, not as a way to shame the women or to shame the people who find themselves there, because it's like what's done is done, but as a way to help prepare future generations or younger women, younger men, even whatever it may be, to try to avoid getting in their scenarios. I know there's certain things that you can't control. Like I said, there's people who get married and they get widowed and they have kids. Sometimes people get divorced. Sometimes people pass away. Things happen. But I'm saying for those situations that can be avoided, we should try to, as much as possible, put people in scenarios where they can be set up for success. And having a culture where we valorize or we even pedestalize women who are in impossible scenarios. Having a culture where we valorize women who are put in situations where essentially they are set up for fail or they are set up to burn out. I don't think that's something we should be doing. I think there should be an honest, balanced conversation about, okay, yeah, here's how a person can make the best of their scenario, and also how can we try to create a space where hopefully other young women and men don't have to go through that gruesome, tough, difficult process. Because what she described is incredibly difficult. And like I said, she's young and she has the energy for it. And maybe the grace of God is keeping her. But nobody should have to do that long term by themselves. Nobody should have to do that. So like I said, I do not think the valorization of single parenthood or single motherhood is good because there's enough proof out there to show that the kids ultimately end up suffering. And like I said, apart from those small scenarios where, people are able to do okay and are able to cope, in spite of, we should be trying to set up people for the most successful outcomes ever, which we know generally comes from people who are growing up in healthy, functioning two-parent households. So, those are my thoughts. Those are my concerns. Again, this isn't a shame to anybody who does find themselves in this scenario. Life happens, and you make the best of it. But I think if we could at least try to create a culture or have the conversations and say, hey, if we can avoid this kind of stuff moving forward, and if we can make it known that this is not the ideal, and that let's try to do these different things so we can avoid getting in scenarios where they're going to be harder, then we would be all the better for it. So, that's my thought on the situation. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Also, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button. Thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.